British musician FKA Twigs is accusing actor Shia LaBeouf of sexual battery, assault, and inflicting emotional distress. The artist, born Talia Barnett, cites a long-term abusive relationship.
Singer-songwriter Talia Barnett, known professionally as FKA Twigs, has reignited her war with former partner Shia LaBeouf, filing a new lawsuit that brands the NDA from their 2025 settlement illegal hush money under California's STAND Act and the broader Silenced No More Act framework. She says LaBeouf secretly demanded a massive payoff after she told The Hollywood Reporter she still doesn't feel safe. Proof, she claims, that his control never ended. The suit, handled by Matthew Rosengart, the same attorney who freed Britney Spears from her conservatorship, could not only vaporize their deal, but also pry open every cloak and dagger arbitration celebrities use to bury abuse. This follows Twigs' original December 2020 lawsuit that sparked the Me Too movement's legal evolution. Stay tuned, because in Section 2 we'll uncover the single email LaBeouf's team sent at midnight, the message that could flip this case from civil skirmish to career-ending backfire. Sections 212 present dramatized scenarios based on legal precedent and investigative analysis of what could unfold. These are speculative developments, not confirmed reporting. Hours after FKA Twigs' lawyer challenged their NDA under California's STAND Act, Shia LaBeouf's counsel, led by veteran attorney Sean Hawley, who has represented him since the original case, fired back a terse midnight message titled, "Liquidated damages."
All the things that he was accusing you of were absolutely not true.
Nothing was ever true. Like, this is the thing, but I would really doubt myself, you know, especially when I'd wake up and he'd be like, "You were lying there with your eyes open, planning to leave me."
It demanded $750,000 within 10 days unless she publicly retracted all safety concerns and reaffirmed the gag clause. Attached, a wire transfer invoice ready for her signature, proof, Twigs argues, that the actor tried to monetize her fear instead of confront it. Then came the slip. A paralegal accidentally CC'd LaBeouf's liability insurance adjuster, revealing plans to bill the payout to his policy. If the carrier refuses to cover a payment that violates anti-gag law, LaBeouf could end up writing the check himself, and that's only the first domino. Next, we'll peel back the policy language and show how one hidden clause could send the whole settlement crashing down. LaBeouf's liability policy, underwritten by Chubb, looks bulletproof until page 67, where an exclusions box bars coverage for any settlement demand that contravenes public interest statutes or silences lawful reporting of abuse. Twigs' lawyers seize on that single line, arguing the $750,000 invoice is exactly the kind of hush payment the clause forbids. If the carrier denies indemnity, LaBeouf must fund the demand himself and reimburse legal costs Chubb has already advanced. Internal emails leaked through discovery show adjusters scrambling. One warns that paying could expose the firm to regulatory fines under California's anti-gag provisions. Another suggests countersuing LaBeouf for policy fraud.
The New York Times released details of the lawsuit, which was filed in Los Angeles Superior Court. It also says LaBeouf knowingly gave her a sexually transmitted infection. Barnett claims LaBeouf once drove recklessly, saying he removed his seatbelt and threatened to crash the car unless she professed her love for him.
Meanwhile, a forensic accountant hired by Twigs traces the actor's liquid assets, a Malibu compound leveraged to the hilt, and a production company bleeding cash after his last film flopped. Should Chubb pull the plug, LaBeouf might face a seven-figure bill he can't cover, forcing either personal bankruptcy or a very public trial over whether NDAs can still muzzle survivors. Coming up, we uncover LaBeouf's emergency plan to offload assets, and the quiet studio execs deciding whether to cut him loose or double down. In the week after Chubb's alarm bells rang, real estate trackers noticed a sudden listing, LaBeouf's mid-century Malibu house, marketed off MLS for quick close, cash preferred. Simultaneously, filings in Delaware show his production banner, Sable Productions, transferring its library rights to a newly formed LLC managed by his sister. Lawyers call it a textbook asset-light sprint, a move to park valuables beyond creditor reach before a judgment hits. But speed can betray intention. Escrow emails reveal the buyer is a venture fund tied to a hedge loan outfit already financing LaBeouf's legal fees. If regulators deem the sale a sham, the property could be clawed back, and anyone aiding the transfer dragged into court. Twigs' team has petitioned the judge for an emergency freeze on all LaBeouf-controlled entities while they subpoena the fund's term sheet. Should the order land before the deal records, the hedge fund could find itself owning a house it can't touch and rights it can't exploit.
According to the suit, the singer managed to get out at a gas station. She says LaBeouf followed her, then threw her against the car before forcing her back into the vehicle. In a statement to The Times, LaBeouf did not directly address the lawsuit, but says he has no excuses for his alcoholism and aggression.
Next, we explore the back-channel talks inside the studio that still owes LaBeouf residuals, and whether they'll risk paying him another dime. Executives at Silver Coast Pictures still owe LaBeouf back-end royalties from last year's indie hit, but cutting that check now could drop millions straight into a frozen asset pit. Compliance Counsel urges a hold release until the court clarifies ownership, while the marketing chief frets that withholding payment signals they've sided with Twigs and invites a breach of contract suit. Behind closed doors, the studio floats a compromise. Deposit the residuals into escrow pending final judgment. LaBeouf's agent calls it economic blacklisting and threatens to pull his upcoming project. Yet finance analysts whisper the film has already lost insurers nervous about the Stand Act fallout. If Silver Coast escrows the money, LaBeouf's cash flow stalls, and his asset-light sprint could collapse under its own weight. If they pay now and the freeze order drops tomorrow, the studio joins him in the liability blast radius. Coming up, we dig into the escrow proposal's fine print and the midnight ultimatum that could make or break both LaBeouf's liquidity and the studio's reputation. At 11:38 p.m., Silver Coast's general counsel emails 2 term sheets, one escrowing LaBeouf's residuals, the other releasing them outright. He gives LaBeouf's camp until midnight to choose, or the studio will halt payment indefinitely. Minutes later, LaBeouf's attorney dials in from a blocked number, insisting the escrow insult kills any future collaboration. Meanwhile, Twigs' legal team serves a fresh injunction bid that could freeze the funds before sunrise, citing evidence of asset flight.
He would often just start having an argument with me in the middle of the night, start accusing me of doing all sorts of things, planning to leave him in my head. He'd wake me up and tell me I was disgusting, that I was vile.
Inside the studio, finance screens flash red as overseas distributors threaten to yank financing if LaBeouf's name stays in the credits. Marketing drafts emergency artwork with his cameo trimmed. By 11:57, Silver Coast CFO leans toward escrow, but a last-second text arrives from LaBeouf's agent, "Pay tonight, file arbitration tomorrow, or we walk and take your sequel with us." 3 minutes remain. One click decides whether millions lock in limbo, the sequel collapses, or the studio joins the storm of litigation swirling around Shia LaBeouf. What choice lands before the clock strikes 12? That suspense hangs until our next installment. 11:59:58 p.m. Silver Coast CFO hovers over send payment. 11:59:59. An alert pops. Injunction granted. Twigs' freeze order arrives nanoseconds before the deadline, instantly locking every account tied to LaBeouf and Sable Productions. The studio's wire interface grays out. The residual millions turn to digital ice. Midnight strikes. LaBeouf's agent, still on the line, hears the CFO exhale. Funds are frozen. Deal's off. In the same breath, marketing pushes the sequel into development hiatus, and overseas backers dump the project on secondary markets at fire sale prices. By sunrise, gossip sites blast LaBeouf funds locked, sequel dead, insurers demand emergency disclosures, and industry lawyers warn that studios may start inserting abuse clause triggers in every A-list contract.
The actor says he has a history of hurting those closest to him and is sorry. The Times also outlines accusations from LaBeouf's ex-girlfriend Carolyn Foe, including that he once headbutted her. When presented with the claims, LaBeouf in an email to The Times denied many of the allegations.
Next, we'll watch how a single frozen wire ripples through Hollywood's risk calculus, and whether other stars' hush money NDAs survive the chill. Within 24 hours, 3 talent agencies circulate an emergency memo, all NDAs cross-referenced with Stand Act exposure, immediate risk audits required. Insurance underwriters follow, adding premium surcharges for clients with past abuse settlements. Streaming platforms quietly reorder search results, pushing LaBeouf's catalog behind lesser-known titles to dodge splash page controversy. Meanwhile, finance desks at rival studios model worst-case scenarios. If a single freeze order can shred a sequel overnight, any actor's hush money clause becomes a ticking bond market liability. Lawyers race to craft new conduct carve-outs. essentially pre-authorizing studios to withhold royalties the moment an abuse claim surfaces. No injunction needed. Yet in the scramble, one overlooked contract clause from a previous LaBeouf indie flick resurfaces, promising him first dollar gross on future spin-offs unless he's proven to have committed fraud before principal photography.
He says he owes the women the opportunity to air statements publicly and will accept responsibility. The 34-year-old says he is currently sober and in therapy, but added he is not cured of his PTSD or alcoholism.
With the sequel in hiatus, that clause could spring open millions in penalties, unless the studio proves fraudulent intent tied to his asset shuffle. Can Silver Coast make that case before investors sue for breach? The next twist lies just beyond the ledger. Silver Coast's attorneys dispatch forensic accountants to sift LaBeouf's frozen accounts for any trace of premeditated concealment. The goal? Prove he shuffled assets after signing that first dollar gross clause, knowing a freeze was likely, textbook fraud that would void the payout trigger. Deep in the bank logs, they find a midnight transfer labeled Consulting BK LLC, routed through a Cayman-shell that formed the same week his Malibu house quietly hit the market. A subpoena to the shell's registered agent bounces back. Address dissolved, manager unreachable. Enter the Securities and Exchange Commission, tipped that investor money from LaBeouf's stalled sequel flowed through the same shell in a short-term loan loop. If the SEC tags that loop as wire fraud, Silver Coast can walk away free, and LaBeouf faces federal exposure on top of civil ruin. The studio's legal chief drafts a notice of breach. LaBeouf's camp threatens retaliatory lawsuits. Investors convene an emergency Zoom to decide whether to file their own fraud claim or ride the probe. One verified Cayman bank receipt could swing the decision, and right now, investigators are hours from cracking the offshore server containing that receipt. Which side will lay hands on the document first? That answer, and the fate of every hush-money NDA in Hollywood, hangs in the balance.
So when did you think maybe there are some issues here, there's a problem?
There wasn't one set moment, but it's very subtle. That's the thing about, domestic abuse, domestic violence. It's a real gradual.
Investigators crack the offshore server and pull a single PDF, Swift TXN 9847, BK LLC to Sable Productions. It shows $2.01 million wired 1 hour after LaBeouf signed Silver Coast's first dollar gross clause. Memo line: bridge loan to cover personal obligations. The timestamp nails intent. He funneled investor cash through a shell to prop up his own liquidity before any freeze order hit. Silver Coast rushes the document into an emergency breach filing. LaBeouf's attorneys counter with a motion to strike, claiming the file was obtained without proper treaty protocol and can't be admitted in U.S. court. If the judge agrees, the fraud proof vanishes. If she allows it, LaBeouf's payout rights evaporate and the SEC's criminal probe ignites. The hearing is set for 8 a.m. A single ruling will decide whether LaBeouf's hush money play collapses in public view or slips behind another legal veil. The courtroom is standing room only when Judge Martinez gavels in. LaBeouf's team argues first, citing international comedy. No Cayman Treaty, no admission. Silver Coast's counsel counters with precedent that allows foreign bank records when a crime-fraud exception is plausible. The judge studies the timestamps, then rules. The PDF is admissible for the limited purpose of assessing fraudulent intent. Gasps ripple. LaBeouf drops his pen,
shutting the door on potential lawsuits surrounding her allegations, with FKA Twigs previously citing relentless abuse amid their year-long romance, along with alleging Shia gave her a sexually transmitted infection.
Moments later, the SEC attorney, quiet until now, steps forward and announces a parallel grand jury probe. Every camera in the gallery whirs to life. Silver Coast's stock ticks up on live feeds as analysts predict the studio will walk away clean. LaBeouf's lawyer requests an immediate recess to discuss a global resolution, but prosecutors refuse, insisting that any deal must acknowledge wire fraud liability. Outside, agents serve search warrants on Sable Productions' LA offices. and news alerts flash. Stars NDAs under new scrutiny. Industry insiders predict a cascade. Other performers with sealed settlements could see their deals re-examined for Stand Act conflicts. Whether LaBeouf negotiates a plea or fights a two-front war against civil and criminal charges will be decided in the next and potentially final round. Judge Martinez grants LaBeouf 48 hours to accept a plea covering wire fraud and Stand Act violations, no hush clauses allowed, or face simultaneous civil trial and federal indictment.
E! News confirmed FKA Twigs dropping her $10 million lawsuit against Shia LaBeouf, with the exes settling their case out of court.
His attorneys huddle, but insurers have already voided policies. The Malibu house sale is frozen, and every studio has inserted abuse trigger clauses into new contracts. LaBeouf exits through the service corridor, flanked by agents, while FKA Twigs issues a single statement: "Silence is expensive, truth is free." Hollywood scrambles to audit every sealed settlement, lawmakers schedule hearings on abuse gag loopholes, and streaming services prep disclaimer banners for any title tied to hush money NDAs. Whether LaBeouf bends to the plea or risks total bankruptcy will unfold in the coming days, but the era of off-the-books silence looks over. If you want front-row updates on the plea decision, the SEC probe, and the wider collapse of hush culture in entertainment, hit subscribe, tap the bell, and stay tuned, because the next courtroom twist is already on the docket.